So you've decided you want to get into camping. You're going to need some essentials. This series focuses on the essentials of beginners getting into camping or the outdoors. Today, we're going to go over knives and sharpening knives. So to begin with, knives come in two basic forms. They come in like a folding pocket knife style like this. Some of them you have to pull out on your own. Others have like an assist on it where they'll pop open. The next most common style is what's called a fixed blade knife. So this doesn't fold. It's a solid knife. Usually comes in some type of a sheath. Folding knives are good for small intermediate tasks, cutting boxes open, cutting rope, twine, basically everyday tasks, which is why you usually keep them in your pocket, right? Something like a fixed blade knife is more of a specific task driven thing. You can still do all the things you can do with this knife. However, it's a little bit bulkier. You usually hang them on the outside. They're less concealable. And most of the time, they're a little bit larger than this pocket knife. Now, these also range in price. This Mora knife, for example, is around $10. An amazing, good knife. And then you can get up to much higher end, very expensive knives that are also fixed blade knives. Outdoor tasks, when you're getting into the wild and you want to go camping or something like that, and you're in tent camping, you're going to need knives mainly for a few things. When you're setting up your shelters or tarps or tents or whatever, if you need to have some twine, where you're setting up a ridge line for your hammock, or staking tents down with extra guy lines and ropes, and you've just got a big twine of it, paracord or something, and you want to cut it. Other things like fire starting and stuff, you're going to need a knife to make feather sticks and kind of shaving off little bits of shavings of dry wood so that you can help make a tinder bundle to get a fire started. You can get into batoning, where you can split larger pieces of wood down into smaller. Most of the time, if you have an axe or a hatchet handy, you're going to want to use something like that. But there are bushcraft style knives or fixed blade knives where you can do that. I wouldn't suggest doing batoning with a pocket knife. They're usually a little more fragile because of that pivot. So again, choose your knife for the style of work that you're planning on doing. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the type of grinds or blades, bevels that they keep on the blade. Looking at these two knives, they look pretty similar, right? They both have a sharp end where you cut things. They both have a point, but there are differences in the way that these blades are ground. So for example, this knife has a convex grind on it, which means like when you're looking down the blade, you can see this bevel, right? Where you've got the back of the knife is real wide and then down towards the blade comes down to a point. And it looks like that. But if you were to examine this knife really close, you'll notice that it comes up at an angle, and then right at the tip, the cutting edge, that angle changes and becomes a little less steep and comes up to that point. What that means is that cutting edge is real small. Now that offers a couple of conveniences. One, it's a lot easier to sharpen and quicker to sharpen a convex grind. You only need to sharpen just that little bit on the edge to get your blade back to razor sharp. For basic opening boxes, cutting rope, it's perfect for you. Now, if you're looking to get into more like wood carving or making real fine feather sticks, you can do that with a knife, but when it comes to real detailed work, you're going to have issues with that because as you're laying the knife, the bevel of the knife down on a piece of wood and you want to get that real feathery grind, you'll notice that convex grind, because of that angle change, is going to be a little bit more difficult to do that type of work. That's where this type of grind comes into play more. This is what's called a Scandinavian grind or a Scandi grind. What a Scandi grind is basically it's just that singular bevel. It's one singular bevel up to that point. So one of the great benefits of having a Scandi grind is super easy to find that bevel when you're sharpening. This, putting it on a sharpening stone, it's a real tiny little bevel. It's kind of hard sometimes when you're just starting out sharpening to keep that at a consistent bevel without the help of other tools. Where this has so much more room or area on it, when you're putting it on a sharpening stone, you can really register that bevel and sharpen it a little bit better. You can really get really fine feathery shavings where this kind of gets a little bit thicker shavings. It's a little bit more difficult to do. I'll try to put a link to this knife if you're interested in the description down below. Then you can get up to just crazy things like this Harbor Freight Rambo knife. If you're just starting out and you're getting into nature, this is very tempting because it's cheap, right? I think this knife is $12 at Harbor Freight. I wouldn't suggest buying this.
I'm coming to get you.
You honestly do not need these big, gigantic knives. If you're going out, you can do everything with a little tiny knife like this. It's all you need. If you're going to take a knife out into the wild and you're going to do a bunch of tasks, it's going to get dull, especially if you start batoning wood with it or carving or anything that is working on some type of hard surface. No matter if you spent $5 on your knife or $500 on your knife, eventually they all get dull. You have a couple options when it comes to sharpening. There's a bunch of different things out there. There are like little ceramic knife sharpeners that have little V's in it that you can kind of strike your knife through. That works for the most part. If you want to pick one of those up and just pull it through a few times, they do tend to put a decent little blade on the edge of it and sharpens it fairly well. Another option is things like these where they're like sharpening stones. You can pick this one up at like Harbor Freight for a couple dollars. These are at basically every outdoor camp store, even in your Ace Hardware or something in the camping section, they sell these little man-made sharpening stones. So what these are they're fairly inexpensive. You have a coarse side and a fine side. You need some type of lubricant while you're working on this, something to create kind of a slurry and to pull those metal chips away as you're sharpening so it doesn't clog up your stone. There's two different main common types. You can either use water or you can use oil, like a 3-in-1 oil or something like that. I suggest using water. If you use oil, then you're like trying to contain this and it doesn't have to get too dirty or something like that. And you're trying to always bring a container of oil with you. It's just more of a workshop type thing when you use oil, to be honest. Now, if you want to step up a little bit from there, you have an India oil stone. So these are more natural stones. This one here is made by Norton. It's really good, really fine. So this is that red kind of India stone. So again, same concept as this, except this is more of a natural stone. You've got your rough side and then your really fine side. So you can use these with oil or water, just like I said before. On the other one, it's just more of a kind of a step up and more of a nicer, longer polish where you can really refine a really, really smooth, nice bevel. Then you can step up even further and get a stone like this one here from Sharp Pebble. So this one has a 1000 grit coarse side and then a 6000 grit. So the higher the grit, the finer the edge or the bevel that you're going to put on that. Sharpening to a 6000 grit is pretty good. Like you can do surgery with that if you sharpen it right.
That's a terrible idea.
You can just pour water on top of these stones and go to work at it. However, I like to really saturate the stone. This is a porous stone, so it does suck up water. If you pour water on it, you'll see it just suck it right in. So what I do is I tend to take like a little container like this from the dollar store. I think this is a pencil box or something. I'll put my sharpening stone, I'll keep my sharpening stone in there and then fill this up with water. I emptied it for the winter, but it's getting into spring now. I'll just have it in water all the time and ready to go. When you put this stone on the bench and you start to go working and sharpening, you'll notice this thing will start moving around. So we need a way to hold this in place. Now, if you go with this box method or just in general on a bench, you can pick one of these up. This is kind of an adjustable kind of screw type thing where you can put your stone in it, bring that down, tighten it up like that, and it'll hold the stone. The bottom has rubberized feet, so you can put that on your bench and it'll stay fairly solid as you sharpen. What I tend to do is take this and I'll lay it over top of my tote like this. And that way I can grab some water, sprinkle it on, and as I sharpen, that kind of water just drips back in and it doesn't get water all over your bench. So it's more of a clean method or way to do it. They also do sell things like this, where it's just a bamboo block with a rubber kind of thing in it. You can take your stone like that, press it inside of this rubber kind of gasket thing that holds it in place, and then sit it inside of this, and that holds it fairly well as well. If you want to get even cheaper than that, you can go to your dollar store and pick up some shelf liner. So this is that real like rubbery, grippy shelf liner stuff. You can pick this up for like $1 for a roll of it. You can get any color you want usually. Cut a strip off, lay it on your bench, put your block, your sharpening stone on top of that, and it'll stay perfectly well. All you need is this, $1. I do have a video out there on a sharpening system like this. There are things like diamond plates like this as well. So you can pick up these diamond plates on Amazon really cheap, and they range from 400 grit up to 1200 grit. Again, perfect for all you really need for sharpening a knife. This would be great. However, I wouldn't suggest mounting them to a board like this. It's a little more difficult to get a knife in. This is more set up for like a chisel or plane blades and things like that. So something I haven't mentioned yet about these type of stones is they are a natural stone. And as you work one area all the time, you're back and forth, what you'll notice is you'll start creating kind of a belly in that stone. For sharpening a knife, not too big of a deal to have that, but the in general rule is you want that stone to be as flat as possible so that you don't end up putting kind of a bevel or a curve in your blade. You want that to be as sharp as or flat as possible, so as you're sharpening, you're getting a nice consistent bevel all the way across your knife. How do we actually sharpen our knife? Do I go back and forth? Do I go in circles? What do I do to get a really good blade on my knife? To demonstrate that, we're going to use just the real basic entry-level sharpening stone. To start off, I'm going to lay my knife flat on the stone like that. Then I'm going to lift up the back until I feel that bevel engage. So as soon as you feel that flat, try to hold that blade flat. And then we're going to start with small strokes, small circular strokes up and down the blade. So you're just doing small little circles, and we're moving across the stone as we do it, just to try to keep that flatness. We're trying to use all the area of the stone as much as possible, not just focusing on one area where we're going to create that divot we talked about. You'll start to see black on your stone, right? Some black in the water, stuff like that. That's the metal coming off your knife. As I'm sharpening, you'll see here, this side of the blade here is real, you can see the machining marks, nice straight edges. While on this side, you'll start to see that as I'm grinding, or as I'm sharpening the knife, it's taking all those away and smoothing them out. What you want to do is go to the other side of your knife, and you want to be able to run your thumb, don't go this way into it, you want to go run your thumb across, and you want to feel kind of a rough little burr, almost like a little ledge on this side. That means what you're doing is you're sharpening, is you're rolling this steel over the edge a little bit, and that's what you're looking to do. We're just going to do this now for another minute or two, and I'll be back when we have a good burr on this one side, and I'll show you what's our next step is. So if you can see there, we are nice and smooth. We have consistent grinds all the way across. We've stayed on the coarse stone, and we've got a nice burr that I can feel all the way across that blade. So now we're going to flip it over. We're basically going to take the knife, flip it over, and do the same thing on the other side, where we're going to get all those machining marks off and basically roll that burr back over. So we want to feel that burr on the other side now. We're just going to do this now until we roll the bevel on the other side, and I will be back when we're there. So we've established a burr on the other side now, and both sides have been ground down nice and flat, looking real good. We're now going to flip this around. So we're going to loosen up our grip here. Flip the stone around to our fine side. Same process as before. We're going to start with slow, large circles on this fine side, moving from one side of the stone to the other. And we're just going to do that until we feel the burr roll around to the other side. and we can see the coarse scratches on the blade disappear. So if you look real close on this side, you'll see the scratches, that scratch pattern here. You can kind of see their large scratch patterns. Now, if we flip over to the side that we're currently sharpening, you'll see those scratch patterns are starting to go away, and you're starting to see much finer scratch patterns on that. So after about a minute of doing this, you should see most of your scratch patterns from the coarse side have disappeared. So you should see a real nice fine scratch pattern now all the way across that bevel. And if I flip over, I do feel a burr all the way across on the other side. Now what I want to do is long strokes from the tip all the way to the end like that, and doing long, smooth, consistent strokes. So now I'm going to take that. Now we're looking real nice there. I'm going to take that, flip it over, and do the same process on the other side. Okay, so we have finished our blade on both sides on the fine stone. Now the next step is up to you if you want to take a really sharp knife to a scary sharp knife. So right now, your blade is very sharp. Now, if you feel a burr on that other side, so for example, if I'm sharpening on this side, right, that would put a burr on this blade, this side of the edge. So basically what I want to do is take my knife, flip it over on that side, find the bevel, and do one quick stroke to pop that bevel off. So at this point, you have scratch patterns looking good on the knife. And if you just barely touch your finger to that blade, I can feel it is razor sharp. So the next thing I'm going to introduce to you guys is a leather strop. So if you've ever seen old cowboy movies, you'll see the old cowboy sitting there with a big leather strap or his belt, and he's swiping that blade up and down at night. That's what a leather strop is. So this is a leather strop as well. It's just a piece of wood that's flat that someone has glued a piece of leather to. If you add some polishing compound that comes in little bricks like this, sometimes they're green, they're brown, they're white, depending on the grit or what they're used for, you would basically take it and rub it on that leather and charge that leather with this polishing compound. So this side I've done with green, this side I haven't done yet. So essentially what I'm going to do is just rub this polishing compound on this leather. That's going to pack it in the leather and give something, as I'm rubbing the knife across it, it'll really polish that metal and make it really, really refine that edge. So now what I'm going to do is lay that flat, and I'm going to just pull my knife across it on that bevel. Just like I was doing on the sharpening stone, I'm just pulling my knife across that. Instead of pushing, I'm pulling it now. And I'm pulling it across that compound, that polishing compound, and I'm running it across under some fairly decent pressure. And I'm going to do this probably 50 times. So this is really, really going to polish that blade. It's going to get rid of all of those little micro scratches from the 1000 grit. And it's going to really, really refine that edge. And if you can see there or not, if I can catch the light, that bevel is now shiny and almost mirror-like, where this side we haven't done yet. It's still a little bit duller. So now we're going to flip it over and do the other side. Same process. So slight little burr on the other side, so flip it back over, and just one swipe on the other side. That'll pop that burr off. So I don't suggest doing this, but I want to show you how sharp this knife is. I can take my forearm here, and I wouldn't do this if I were you, but if I just run it across my forearm here, it has shaved all of the hair off of my forearm. This thing is sharp enough to shave hair. Let's give it a little rope test. So here I've got just a little bit of paracord, just because it's available and it's right there. So I've got it looped over here, and I'm going to take my blade and I'm just going to put pressure on, and just with that, a little bit of pressure, it cut through. So now if we take double and we slice, pull through, I barely pulled through, and it just cut through 2 layers of paracord. Now if we have 4 layers of paracord, again, barely any effort. Now, a Couple things with knife safety. Why do we want our knife to be so sharp? A sharp knife is a safe knife. Now, if you're just getting into knives and camping and stuff, you might hear that saying and be like, what are you talking about? Like, why is a sharp knife a safe knife? A dull knife, if you have a dull knife, right, and you're cutting a piece of wood, the chance of that knife slipping out of the wood because it doesn't have a nice sharp bevel to catch and dig into the wood and cut, the chance of that slipping and moving out is a lot greater by being dull. The duller your knife is, the more dangerous it is. If your knife gets dull, sharpen it. It is your main utility tool when out in the wild or out in nature. Always, always carry a knife with you. Whether that is a fixed blade or a folder, like I said, your choice, but carry a knife with you and make sure it stays sharp. If you have any questions or further stuff, I'm trying to touch into the just basics of knives and knife sharpening for just people who are just getting into camping, kind of a camping 101 playlist. I'm going to make more of these videos, these type of intro into camping videos, and put it on this playlist. So if you're interested, subscribe down below so you don't miss those. Give me a thumbs up on this and comment. What kind of knife do you like? What type of knife do you use out in the wild? If you haven't bought a knife yet and you're thinking about going out into the wild or start camping, what type of knife are you interested in? If you have any questions, comments, concerns, I will try to answer them the best I can. I'm by no means an expert in any of this. This is just from my general experiences and stuff. I went to a scout training the other day where I thought a lot of the stuff was pretty basic knowledge, but a lot of the new parents that are just getting into scouting and things who haven't really spent a lot of time outdoors really didn't know a lot of this stuff. So I want to make these videos for them to get them more comfortable with outdoors and camping and intro into stuff and what type of tools they're gonna need. So again, if you have any questions, comment down below, give me a thumbs up, share this out to somebody who you know that's getting into nature or wants to go camping, and maybe they'll be interested in it. With all that being said, I'll see you on the next one.